Hey, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon to everybody out there who's joined us for today's webinar session. We are about to kick things off in just a moment, but before we do, I'd like to run through a few quick housekeeping notes for all of our attendees out there. The first thing that we typically get asked a lot is if there's any recording of this session that's going to be available. The answer to that question is yes, we are recording this session, and we will be making that available in the Quest content library following the conclusion of Quest Forum digital event. And we will go ahead and reach out to all of our attendees and let you know how to access that once it is available. And then the other thing that we typically get is we are holding about 10 minutes at the end of our session today for Q&A. So if there's anything that you would like to ask our presenter over the course of this presentation, please feel free to put those into the questions module that you'll see in the GoToWebinar console. And then we'll be happy to address those at the end. And then without further delay, I've got, looks like we're on the hour. So I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Eric Poff from ERP Suites, and his presentation is titled Improve Your Odds of Digital Success, Orchestration, and the Four Pillars of Transformation. Eric, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Quest and thank all you attendees as well for joining us. I'm excited to present this digital event here. And as the title suggests, we're going to talk about orchestrations. But more importantly, how do orchestrations, turn those from technology and just, kind of buzzwords into actual success? So let me click through this here. Make sure. Just making sure that we're sharing correctly here. We're talking about success, yet we have this very doom and gloom quote here. I like it. It sums it up correctly. It sums it up what we should all be thinking about and doing. Right? So if we're not changing, if we're not adapting, then the end is near. Case in point, Wells Fargo. They're a great example. You may have heard about them recently in the last couple of years. They ran into quite a bit of problems with opening fake accounts and getting in trouble with the government. Multi-million-dollar fines, which resulted in a new CEO coming on board. One of the first things that CEO said was, we need to be a technology company. Right? It's an old school company. You can even see from their logo, the old stagecoach and horses. But they needed to change. And for them, being a technology company meant a couple things. First, a focus on mobile. Right? Improve the customer experience. Right? Makes a lot of sense. Also, their audience, right? They needed to focus on a younger audience. Mobile certainly goes hand in hand with that. And then finally, think about all the data that they sit on top of. Can they leverage that data and use blockchain and some other technologies to monetize that? So that's a great example of a company that may have not really been thinking about technology and maybe didn't even think that they needed to change, but now they found themselves in a situation where they had to change. So enough about Wells Fargo. For some of you may be wondering who ERP Suites is. And we're a JDE Edwards managed services and data center hosting company. We have four primary pillars. The first one being the advisory practice, which is the team that I lead. My focus and my team's focus is turning these buzzwords and new technologies into real actionable outcomes for our customers. We also do managed services. That includes CNC, security, everything around JDE Edwards that you probably expect. Hosting as well. So we have a primary data center outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, another data center in Denver, and then, of course, consulting. So typical upgrade consultants and what have you. As a leader of our advisory practice, I always start with this slide deck. It's based off of something that Oracle put out there a while ago. And it talks about this transformation as a journey, right, for your ERP system. Automation's on one side, machine intelligence is down below, and where our starting point is this traditional ERP system. Very transactional, it's very system of record. However, as we introduce more automation, more intelligence, our journey now shifts to the right. Now we're in this digital platform space. Things like mobile and IoT and collaboration. Sounds pretty interesting. Of course, more buzzwords. Again, as we slide to the right, we're now in this supervised ERP, robotic process automation, RPA, voice, assisted decision making. More things that sound awesome, things that we think we should be doing, is kind of in this supervised ERP stage. And then finally, I refer to this as kind of the holy grail, this autonomous ERP. Lots of machine learning, AI, exception-based processes just for humans, right? And way much more. Talking to customers, and probably most of you out there right now, look and say, I want that. I want that autonomous ERP. Makes sense. Sad reality is, this is where most customers are today. Sure, some of you may be doing mobile, maybe even a little bit of RPA, but by and large, most are still stuck in this transactional system of record for JDE Edwards. My goal, and I hope today to arm you with some information as well, is to help you move to the right. How can I move to the right? How can I get into the digital? How can I get into the supervised and beyond? To do that, at ERP Suites, our focus when it comes to digital transformation is in 4 key areas. First one is efficiency. So looking at processes, what can we tweak? What can we improve? Maybe reduce steps, automate steps. The second one is around customer experience. We kind of take for granted some of the screens and applications that are given to us. Can we make those better? Can we change up the UI a little bit so that the customer experience is better? Agility. So how quickly can we roll out new capabilities, new functionality to our users? And finally, risk. Right? So if there's something that we should be doing today that we're not doing, right? We should be doing that because it opens us up to risk. So we need to start doing that. So those are 4 key pillars. So any project that we do, that we work with our customers in terms of digital transformation, we look at these 4 buckets and say, does this project fall into this one or that one? Because that'll help us kind of frame up the business case later on. But let's be honest, what is everyone talking about? The main headlines, it was last year, certainly this year as well, at this digital event. The big talking point that gets everyone's attention is the orchestrator. Great new capability, great new feature. Oracle continues to enhance it and roll out new features. My team, we build a lot of solutions around orchestrations. We love it. However, talking to many of my colleagues and customers, when we mention and start talking about orchestrations, some of the first things that come to mind are UDOs, service requests, RESTful APIs, Groovy scripting, form extensions, notifications. I'm here to tell you, yep, all that's true. And all those are components, all those play into orchestrations, all those things are at your disposal. But again, it's very, very technical focused. When I talk orchestrations and when I think orchestrations, I think of things a little bit differently. I think of back office automation, mobilizing a sales force, paperless factory, IoT, especially industrial IoT, improving asset utilization, and data democracy. Just think about all that data and all that information that's in your JDE Edwards environment today. What if you can make that more available and make it easily available? Obviously, you want to put security controls in place, but just opening up information might lead to process improvements and whatnot. So when I think of orchestrations, I think of the business impact. I start looking at the use cases. Because why is this important? If you're not looking at orchestrations, you should be. If I asked that same question or posed that probably a year ago, or definitely 2 years ago, most of the hands in the crowd, if I said who's using orchestrations, very little. Each year that the number of hands keeps rising, right? So I trust that many of you out there are using orchestrations, at least exploring orchestrations. If you're not, you should be. There's a lot of great sessions this week, a lot of great content online to learn more about orchestrations. But it's more than just that, right? So once you have your footing in what orchestrations are, the next point is, well, what can they do for you? Case in point, Tesla Motors. Third quarter of last year, they announced their results, and their market cap increased to more than 100 billion. The B, right? Big number. How big? More than that of GM and Ford combined. That's huge, right? So this means many of you out there, maybe on the call, certainly in the JDE Edwards industry, if you're part of that supply chain for GM, right, things are changing. Right? There's forces out there beyond your control that are probably causing your business to change. Tesla's a great example of that. They've revolutionized this full stack approach to the auto industry, right? Software plus hardware, kind of the Apple model, but for cars. So now they're changing everything. So suppliers are impacted. So we need to move, right? We need to do something, right? And orchestrations can help with that. Because if we don't move, if we don't adapt and change, back to that first example, we can be like Blockbuster. Right? Just staying still is not good. Right? We don't want to be the Blockbuster. I don't want to see my customers be the Blockbuster. All right, so that's going to lead us now to some real-world examples. I mentioned earlier, my team, we work with a lot of our customers to implement solutions built around orchestrations. So I kind of cherry-picked some real examples to present here today. And the goal here is to share these with you, maybe give you some ideas about what's actually possible. First one is the IoT, right? So shop floor, actually not shop floor, but a little bit more system to system. So we have a situation here, a scenario where two different ERPs, one of them being JDE Edwards, were in play at one customer. Fairly typical, especially at larger firms. You've probably got multiple ERP packages doing different things. But more than likely, there's some information that needs to be kept in sync between them. In this case, it's no different. So centered around addressable data, and in particular, tax and pay scale information. Typically, keeping that information in sync required emails, notifications, two different people doing a job to be notified when one thing changed, someone had to go to the other system and update it. There might have been some kind of real integration based off of bubble gum and rubber bands to kind of keep the things together, which really didn't work very well. And we had a situation where data that was getting stale or out of sync caused a lot of business process problems. So the challenge was, how do we keep these two systems in sync, especially the frequency of how often they were updated? We looked at this challenge and we said, you know what's great? Orchestrations are great. Those orchestrations obviously are native to JDE Edwards. They can also do third-party REST calls. So what we're able to do is create an orchestration that would handle either exporting information from JDE Edwards, expose that as a RESTful API, or do the other way, call an external API, pull that information in, update JDE Edwards. And you can schedule that and have that reoccurring. Take the humans out of the process. And, again, back to those agility and process improvement buckets that I mentioned earlier, this falls squarely in line with that. That was more of the back office example of integrations. This example is more on the shop floor. And in particular, we had one customer that has a very, very paper-based process, heavily paper-based. There's probably many of you out there that are saying, yep, we're like that too. Think of work orders, think of the shop floor, printing out paper at the beginning of the day for a worker to follow their operations and sequences and taking notes, and then going back at the end of the day or at the end of the work order, processing that information or handing that information off to then someone key it into JDE Edwards. So very paper-based, very manual-based, and when those two things are involved, very costly. So this customer said, we're getting squeezed from our suppliers, so we need to find a way to reduce costs. Paper-based manual processes are very costly. What can we do? Using orchestrations, we're able to tie into their MES system and integrate it with the P311230 in JDE Edwards using orchestrations, right? So now, as work orders, things are coming off the assembly line, manufacturing execution system, MES can record all that information. Typically, someone's job is to then jot that, how many widgets came off the line, jot that down, go over to JDE Edwards, key that information in, and kind of, do that throughout the day. Now we can get system to system talking to each other using orchestrations. So now we're updating JDE Edwards in real time. And then, added bonus, we created a Cafe One view on top of the JDE Edwards information, kind of planted that as a dashboard in the factory. So now people can real time see this information. Kind of back to that data democracy. Right? A lot of this information was kind of locked away in that MES system. Now we're transferring it to JDE Edwards, system to system, real time, and then sharing that information out so that everybody can see. Walking along the shop floor, you can now see, hey, how many things did we produce? This is red, this is green, right? Here's where I need to go focus my attention on and go drill into more information or actually go to that physical line and see what's the problem, right? So again, all powered by orchestrations behind the scenes, and obviously the Cafe One page as well. These things are tangible, they're real. The result is, obviously, now that you can automate those things, you're saving costs. I mentioned RPA earlier, right? Robotic process automation. Bots, big buzzword, trendy topic. Let's have a bot that does this. Let's have a bot that does that. We're no different. We created a finance bot. And it was based on information from one customer as a finance team, and was kind of manually inputting data into the general ledger. Back to that whole point I just mentioned before, where you have manual data entry, there's an opportunity, right? Obviously, could be errors with manual entry, but just time and cost as well. So we looked at, can we create an orchestration that uploads information into the general ledger? That's what we did. So we created an orchestration that would upload journal entries into the general ledger. It was controlled through a third-party automation software that would actually trigger it. So it was kind of rolled out for some of the orchestrator scheduling capabilities. We're using a third-party software that has some scheduling capabilities, so we just leverage that, which is fine, which we do kind of a lot. If there's other tools at play, we see how they can play together. This is no different. So this third-party automation software would trigger an orchestration to run, and when that orchestration was ran, it would do the GL and post the records. What we saw, the results of that, we had to free up over 40 plus man hours a month, right? Which is not huge, but it's not small either, right? So we're saving time there, saving costs there. Obviously, it's repetitive, right? So anything that's repetitive is ideal for this RPA. And it's fast, right? It's way faster than a human could ever do, right? And accurate, right? So it's something that's repetitive, something that we can upload fast. So we can see a lot of savings there. Next one is around generating labels. Similar situation, we had a customer they had really strict requirements for printing labels, but they couldn't be printed ahead of time. It was tied to when the work order was kind of completed. But we needed to get dynamic, right? We needed to be flexible. So we kind of scratched our heads and looked and said, hey, we can use an orchestration, pulls all that information back from JDE Edwards, integrated into a third-party labeling software that would then just print it. And we'll do it all on demand. And it was so successful, the other parts of the organization said we want that to be our standard, right? So orchestration is kind of the gatekeeper there for the data, pulls the information when it's needed, interfaces it out to a printer software, and then that printer software takes it from there. So just simple things like that, right? They don't have to be these huge, complex examples, but all these things are moving you to the right. And my favorite, mobile. I mentioned it there. It's the first example in our digital ERP platform is mobile. And recently, Oracle's announced some changes to their direction around mobile. And they're starting to push more for leveraging orchestrations as the backbone, right? And moving away from these specific built applications and kind of guiding people and directing customers to do this orchestrator route. We have a mobile offering, and we've been doing this for a while, and we absolutely love it. Right? With orchestrations, you can match whatever your business flow is and just put a mobile front end on it. Right? It's quick and easy, right? Especially if it's something that just needs to be executed with a tap of a button, or you need very little data input to trigger the, to run the orchestration. Mobile's fantastic for that. Right? Have all your business logic in an orchestration. It's close to JDE Edwards, right? Sits right next to it, so to speak. And then just put the mobile front end on it. And now it doesn't matter where you sit, right? You can be on the beach, you can be away from the office, and just tap and go. Expanding upon that, now we're getting a little bit more specific, right? We have one customer that said, I've got all these remote customers, or remote users, and them having access, real-time, timely information and access to JDE Edwards is a challenge. Either A, they don't log into JDE Edwards now, right? They're salespeople. We don't want to confuse them with all the screens. Or B, they're on the road so much that just stopping, finding an internet connection and kind of downloading this information is a challenge. Wouldn't it be great if they can just have a list of their customers on their mobile device? So we said, sure. So orchestration, behind the scenes, we're using orchestrations to power this My Customers app, where a salesperson logs in. It automatically picks up their region based on a category code, pulls only their customers for that region, and it pulls back information like address book. It pulls back their who's who information as well. And we can extend that to pull back sales order information, what have you. All with the tap of a button, all controlled by orchestrations. PO approval, big one, right? This is, a lot of people do approvals with JDE Edwards. Why not do it on a mobile device? I tend to think requisition approval or PO approval was built for mobility, right? Really, all you want to do is a few things. You want to see any purchase orders waiting for you. You want to drill into the details, perhaps, see the different lines, and then either approve it or reject it. That simple. And so why go through all those screens within JDE Edwards? Why force maybe executives that aren't comfortable or rarely log into JDE Edwards? Why force them to? Give it to them on a mobile device. Time entry is the same thing. Right? There's a whole, give users a great, easy way to quickly enter their information from a mobile device. Select a day, enter your time, select a category, and you're off and running. Minimizes data errors, simplifies the entire process. And then pay stub details is another example where it's built around this employee self-service, just like the time entry. If I'm an employee, we're using employee self-service, we're using the HCM modules of JDE Edwards. Why not unlock that information, right, and give it to a mobile device? So instead of mailing those things out, mailing pay stubs out, just make it digital. Right? Save cost of printing, save cost of mailing. Right? All those little things add up as you try to move to the right. So those are some real-world examples. The question I get asked a lot is, okay, Eric, how do I get started? I have the latest tools release, or at least the current tools release. I installed Orchestrator Studio. I've read all the manuals and looked at all the examples, and maybe I've started off with the address book example, and yay, voila, I've created an orchestration that returns an address book information. What do I do? That's not really going to move the needle for my organization. How do we move right to the right? How do we get to that digital ERP? So the ERP Suites suite, we use a couple different methodologies. One is design thinking methodology, which is really built around the novel concept of actually talking to our business users. Right? I like to see the operations. I like to, that whole feeling of being empathetic. What do the users do? What do the users see? What's the quickest way, the best way to get to the heart of the problem? So as long as IT is still playing in the background and trying to force orchestrations into a problem, the business is over on the other side saying, I've got these challenges, and what you're proposing doesn't align. This is where design thinking comes into play. So that's what we use at ERP Suites, is design thinking methodology. And we line it into these buckets. Again, you have the traditional ERP, the whole life cycle. We apply this to the design thinking methodology. We're now looking to tackle these problems a slightly different way. So again, looking at your traditional ERP, where you're at today, congratulations, you've already consolidated, all right, or hopefully on your journey to consolidating. It's the whole goal of an ERP system, right? Enterprise. Take all these different business functions, put them in one, so you're designing to consolidate. Right, what do I got to do next, right? I want all those cool things. I want my business to be happy. So the next one is simplify. I talk a lot about mobility. A great starter. It's at the heart of digital transformation. It's simplifying. Simplify screens. Simplify business processes. Get out and talk to your customers, because in this digital stage, you're looking to simplify. Okay. Once you have a few of those under your belt, then you can start looking to differentiate. So now we've got the grasp of simplifying. We're using orchestrations. We're using third-party APIs. We're using some other awesome stuff out there to simplify. Well, now the jump to this differentiate, the jump to supervise ERP is not as big as a jump, because you've already got the foundation. So now you can do those more automation type things. That's going to set you apart from your competition. And then finally, right, once you've kind of addressed your competition, you've separated yourself, Now you can really innovate, do things completely different. Right? And that's that last phase. I've seen time and time again where people try to jump from the traditional ERP to the autonomous ERP and skip those stages in between. And there's a host of articles and publications that have been published recently that show like a failure rate of these digital transformation projects are extraordinarily high. One article had over 60%, another one had over 73% of failure, right? You gotta wonder, why are these projects failing so much? And if you look into the details of what made up those reports, they kind of went too big, right? There's some other things around governance, right, and scope. By all means, those are legit. But also, they kind of skipped these other steps and kind of went for the big bang. And in my opinion, you're setting yourself up for failure. So start simple, right? Simplify, get to the digital stage, or the supervised stage, and then get to the autonomous stage. All right, so 5 tips to get started. So how are we going to get started? This is what we do. First and foremost, find a partner in the business. I mentioned it earlier, IT, we love our technology. I'm a former DBA, right? I'm a recovering DBA, as I like to say. So I love technology, I love number crunching, but to really move the needle with the business, we have to find the partner. So yes, these are great new tools. I love to see the bug list and the enhancement list with each new tools release. Just, I want to try that, I want to try that. But we have to remember, what are we going to use it for? What's the business case we're trying to solve? And to do that, we need a partner. So I always look to find a trusted partner in the business that, is willing to go on a limb a little bit. Right? They're like, hey, I'm technology friendly. I'm okay pushing the needle, pushing the envelope a little bit and trying something new. Those are the people I want to partner with. Second, walk the floor. I mentioned it earlier. I want to see the operations. I want to go on site. If you're a manufacturing company, I want to walk along, see what people are actually doing, see JDE Edwards on the shop floor. If you're more back office, I want to see your back office operations, right? And that's what I recommend to, if you're an IT person on the call, I recommend you do the same. A lot of times we think we know what's going on, right? We see the routing rules and instructions, and we see security set up on the back end, but actually I want to go out and talk to Bob or talk to Jill, and maybe just shadow them, right? Back to that empathy, right? Because I don't know how many times I can tell you that I've asked for the process. Okay, how do you do this business process? How do you do that business process? Write it down, and then you go, okay, now show me. And they start clicking away and moving the mouse, and all of a sudden, right click here, and they do something. You go, hold on, what was that? Oh, after I'm done with this step, I always right click. Yeah, but you didn't mention that. Oh, I didn't think that was important. And you look, well, that's huge. That's when the business rule gets fired off when you do that. That's always key to know. And the only time I would actually know that is actually seeing it. Right? So I know it gets challenged now in this virtual age. So we're doing a lot more virtual workshops and things remotely. But if you can, walk the floor, talk to your users. Third is develop a data strategy. And gets back to the data democracy and kind of governance. Right now, it's with orchestrations. It is way more easier now to share that information with either third-party systems, external, partners, right? So what's your data strategy? All the way from what information can be shared to how are we going to share it, right? What's the format? And then all the way down to, how much, right? In terms of, it's very easy to create an orchestration that can overload your AIS and JAS server, right? You can say, hey, I'm just going to do 9/11, let it run. That's a recipe for disaster. So know what you're going after, try to be as specific as possible, put security in place, and then make it available. So you got to develop that data strategy. Kind of mentioned it this whole presentation, but use cases, use cases, use cases. I love technology. I love the little bells and whistles, but how am I going to use it? What value is this ultimately going to bring back to the business? So find those use cases. Partner with that person in the business and come together on what those use cases are, and then invest, right? Which brings us to the last one, is ROI, right? Anytime you present something, to senior management, ROI, what's our return? If we're going to shell some money out, what kind of benefit do we expect to get back? And sometimes there's straightforward ROI calculations. Right? If we do this, we can eliminate that, and that has a cost of X, Y, Z, so that's your ROI. Sometimes it's not that straightforward. Right? Maybe there's things like new business opportunities that you're not pursuing today because the technology couldn't support it. Well, put a business case around that. Think differently. What is the potential ROI in that case, right? Don't be afraid to kind of explore those opportunities and get creative. Right? You don't want to go too far out, but you want to do your due diligence, research it, but think differently on, here's some new business and it has a potential of X. Here's a process that we no longer have to do and it saves us X amount of time. Here's some third-party software that we use today that we can eliminate by using orchestrations. Right? All those go into the business case. And we hear it a lot too that people are looking for ways to do tools upgrades, right? And sometimes they're costly, right? There's a lot of retro testing and regression testing and retrofitting that may have to go into place. Things are getting easier with each new enhancement that Oracle provides, but that's still a challenge. And so a lot of customers are saying, how can I show benefit? Right? So we tie in a project to go along with it. So it's not just a tools upgrade, but it's a tools upgrade plus you get mobile. It's a tools upgrade plus we're going to deploy these orchestrations that automate things, right? So it makes that business case a lot easier to go sell. So after we do those 5 things, right, we're doing them in coordination with our customers, walking the floor, finding that partner, developing a data strategy, finding those use cases, and then kind of doing an ROI. We do this process here, right? Which is the collaboration phase is the first, which I kind of mentioned. And then we're going to go back and clarify. So we can follow these same things, right? So if you're an IT person on the call and you've got some ideas, first thing I'd say is collaborate. Next is then clarify, right? Conduct those interviews. Get a little bit more clarity around maybe some business questions or things you might have heard or jotted down in previous meetings. And then rank them, right? We do a ranking, kind of green, yellow, red. It's based on difficulty and benefit, right? How difficult do we think this idea is to implement? And what's the benefit that we expect to get back? And based on those really 2 high-level, very simple parameters, we can start to color code things green, color code things yellow, and color things red. And so once we do that, then we can say, okay, here's a few green initiatives. Let's focus on those first, right? Because they're probably around that simplify, design to simplify. That's where we want to spend our energy first. We don't want to go for the reds because those are those landmines. Those are the ones where we get in trouble and we end up being one of those statistics in terms of a failed digital transformation project. So go for the green first. Maybe keep an eyeball on one of those yellows. Keep it warm, but get some quick wins and deliver, right? And deliver it in an agile fashion. So it doesn't have to be 100% day one, right? But as long as it meets your initial requirements, deliver it and then get on an agile fashion, get on a continuous delivery type of methodology where you're like, okay, we've satisfied these requirements. The project's not done, right? The deliverables not done yet. We're just going to continue to enhance it and roll out new ones. Certainly a lot of the UDOs and the orchestrations and all these new tools follow that same methodology, right? We can now deploy things quicker and allow us to be agile. So that's our approach. Start with the green, deliver it in an agile fashion, and then you can start going for those yellows. And who knows, by then, after you've got some of your greens checked off, your yellows really may not be yellow anymore. They may now be green because you've got some of those building blocks in place. All right, so just in case we do have any of the technical folks on the line, what are some of the technical tips? So again, this is from our experience out in the field. I can share with you. First thing, the way we design our solutions, especially around orchestrations, we put the responsibility of the orchestration to do enforcing the interfacing with the JDE Edwards. So any reading and writing to JDE Edwards is all done via orchestrations. No database calls, nothing like that. It's all done through an orchestration. That allows us to follow the business rules, the security, all that blood, sweat, and tears and work that had been done to consolidate right into the ERP system. We're going to take advantage of. So we're going to use orchestrations for reading and writing. And with that comes those business rules. Right, so all those business rules are already in JDE Edwards. They might be triggered, via business function. No problem. Use an orchestration. Load the data up. Right. A lot of times we can load data into like Z tables using an orchestration, and then fire off the corresponding UBE or take it from there using an application. Right. So orchestrations did the heavy lifting of importing the data, and then it did its job to actually call the JDE Edwards application to enforce the rules. Makes things really simple. And if things change, right, if your business rules change, okay, that's just one part that you have to go tackle, right? You have to go address the orchestration part of it. And maybe you don't have to change anything, right, because depending on what business rule is changing. Then we apply this microservices philosophy. And what I mean by that is we look at a process end to end and we say, okay, here's an orchestration is good for this. Let's step through it. Okay, the process is A, and then after you've done A, it's B, and after you've done B, it's C. We could easily make that into one big orchestration, but the better approach is breaking those into 3 separate orchestrations. And then you can tie it together with an overarching orchestration if you want, or if you have a front end that is going to control kind of the flow. So I do A, then I call B, and then I call C. Front end is great for that. But break it down, right? Break it down and use this microservices philosophy where orchestration A is responsible for one and only one thing. Orchestration B is responsible for one and only one thing. And orchestration C is responsible for one and only one thing. That's that microservices philosophy. That way you can reuse that orchestration potentially somewhere else. Or if something does need to change, right? If one little thing changes over time, business requirements change, you're not going back to this big long orchestration and changing things. Instead, you're just going to one and tweaking it. Way easier to manage. And then using Groovy scripts. I saw the agenda, and I saw there's some other topics around Groovy, which is fantastic. We've been using it for a while now. We're fortunate enough to have quite a few developers on staff that were comfortable with Java, so they came over and started to play around with Groovy, and I thought, oh, wow, this is just like Java. Did you know I can do all these great things? So orchestrations, Oracle continues to provide and enhance it and give new functionality. So if there is something that's missing from it, that's where you pop over to Groovy and say, all right, orchestration, can't do this, right? And then, maybe you want to format numbers coming back with dollar signs and commas, let's just say. Nothing really good in orchestration to do that. So I'm going to create a simple Groovy connector, and its job is going to take any of the number inputs, formatted as monetary values, and spit that out. Right? Very simple example, but that's the kind of stuff. Groovy can do a lot more than that. But where you find orchestrations are missing or lacking, that's where Groovy will come into play. So if you don't have people with Groovy experience or Java experience, you can most likely get a contractor, right? Hire just for that particular need. But with Groovy, you can do a lot of things, do a lot of great things. And then finally, I think it goes without saying, but just in case, obtain user feedback early and often. So if you're out there developing, creating something, think you know that process pretty well, why not just put it in PY, right? So if you're developing in DV, especially with an orchestration, doesn't require a package build or anything like that, promote it to PY. Maybe there's more current data there. Get your business partner to validate things in PY before you get too far along, right? And so get that user feedback early, often, before you get too far down the road. And with that, I think we'll turn it back over now and see what kind of questions there may be out there. I'd be more than happy to answer if there are any.
Thank you very much, Eric. And just for all of our attendees out there, I'd like to remind you, if you do have any questions for our speaker, you can feel free to put those into the GoToWebinar console now. Otherwise, Eric, I actually haven't received any questions over the course of this presentation. So if there's anything else that you'd like to review or summarize, I think now would be a good time.
Great, thank you very much. Well, as you went through this, you might have had some ideas or maybe just wanted some more clarity on things. By all means, ERPSuites.com. We have blog postings, we have white papers, some of this information and more details out there. So if you are looking for more information around orchestrations, how do I turn orchestrations into valuable business cases, all on our website, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions if you have them later on. So I thank everyone for attending.
Thank you very much, Eric. And I would also just like to take a moment to thank you for sharing your expertise with everybody as well. And for all of our attendees out there, I would just like to give you all a quick reminder that we do have some great Questopoly prizes up for grabs, courtesy of our partner community. Go ahead and check that out on the Quest website, the questoraclecommunity.org/QFDE will take you to our homepage for Quest Forum digital event. And then finally, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you soon on another Quest Online Learning event. Thank you.
Thank you.